Disclaimer, this is by far the most advanced Kiriko guide on YouTube. Whilst others have made basic Kiriko guides, or have claimed their Kiriko guides to be in-depth, if you watch throughout the entire video, especially the playstyle section, you will see that this video trumps them all. Out of the 34 heroes I've made guides on, Kiriko has been by far the most difficult hero to theorize and script a guide on, and I hope the last section will show that to you as well. Anyways, let's get on with it. Kiriko's primary fire, her Healy papers, make Kiriko fire some healing talisman that seek targeted allies, dealing 13 healing per talisman with a maximum 35 meter lock-on range. The yellow talisman show that your healing has been locked on, whereas the blue talisman do not. However, the blue talisman can still heal. Contrary to some other guides, Kiriko can dish out a significant amount of healing, dealing 79 healing per second, although the projectile speed can reduce this, which leads me on to my first piece of advice, which is to maintain short to medium sightlines. This means that your healing Ofuda will get to your ally faster due to a reduced time to travel, and it reduces the chance that your healing Ofuda will miss and get blocked by your ally simply turning around a corner. Also, try and focus on single target healing rather than spreading your healing across multiple teammates. The reason for this is because you could be missing your healing Ofuda when trying to flick your healing between teammates, and for you to stop healing and to heal someone else just takes too long. A key thing to mention before moving on is to ensure that you interweave your kunai and your talisman like Baptiste's gun, so you might fire a full set of talisman, shoot your kunai once or twice, then continue the cycle. Note that you can also animation cancel your melee with your kunai. Speaking of which, Kiriko's secondary fire, Azami's kunai, makes Kiriko throw kunai, dealing 40 damage to the body and 120 to the head. They travel at 70 meters per second with a fire rate of 1 kunai for almost every half second. For reference, Zen's orbs travel at 90 meters per second, and by just doing some math, Kiriko's DPS from just body shots alone is 72.7. In comparison, Zenyatta's DPS is 120 from just body shots, no discord. Likewise to your healing Ofuda, maintain short to medium sightlines. Your kunai have a relatively slow projectile speed, hence landing them from afar is going to be more inconsistent than landing them up close. Another piece of advice is to try and find narrow, tight angles to where you can spam your kunai aiming at head level in order to maximize your chances of landing headshots, and who knows, you might even get a pick. The best advice for your kunai is target priority. The two general rules for target priority are to shoot what's easy and or what's dangerous. You don't want to be shooting 40 damage kunais into shields, but instead, you want to be landing 120 kunais on squishies and tanks. I'll mention this example later, but say you're on King Zod third point attack, instead of stacking main shooting shield, you could use either of the high grounds, using any of your mobility to at least shoot behind the enemy Reinhardt, or preferably, shooting any unaware squishies. Just imagine 2-tapping an unaware sniper like a Widowmaker or an Ana, who are easy targets, or a Sojourn walking in a straight line, fishing for a railgun one-shot, both an easy and dangerous targets. Kiriko's first ability, Moira Fade but better, makes Kiriko teleport directly to an ally, even through walls, with a max range of 35 meters alongside a cooldown of 7 seconds. Note that Swift Step has a brief cast time that can be interrupted and can cleanse most negative effects. Also note that, thanks to KarQ, you can use the stock sensitivity of your Swift Step to help guide your healing Ofuda.
This indicator reference tip only works on the default Swift Step sensitivity of 50. If you put it any higher, let's say 100 for example, it will not be an accurate representation of whether the Ofuda will seek or not.
You can increase the sensitivity of your Swift Step to be able to flick to an ally to escape easier, but this will come at the cost of your Ofuda accuracy. There are two main uses to Swift Step, aggressive and defensive. Let's go through defensive first. What seems to be a unanimous stance amongst most coaches and guides out there is to initially take an aggressive position or angle as Kiriko, then use your teleport defensively to escape danger, as ioStux described it, an oh shit button. Here's Spilo describing an example of ML7 who could have done this on Kiriko.
Like, look at the Pharah, look at the Zarya, and look at the Genji. They're all looking at him right now. Imagine all of this resource being devoted into a Kiriko, who then just TPs out, and then your team walks forward. And you just press shift, a 7-second cooldown, and then that's it. Do you see this? Do you see this, chat? Do you see this? This is what I was talking about. Okay, he kind of trolls the lobby with how he does it, and he also doesn't have his E, so I'm like not a huge fan. But you see how like theoretically here, he could shoot, bait attention, then TP out, and like bait a lot of attention. His execution and timing there, I think was a goof up, but like there's theory in there.
As ioStux brings up in his guide, unlike Moira Fade, you have to do a 180-degree turn to teleport to a teammate on Kiriko, so getting comfortable and ready to do your flicks to quickly escape danger will be vital for staying alive. You can also utilize the invulnerability frames of your Swift Step to avoid things like Sombra's EMP. For example, on Route 66, say a Sombra tries to EMP you and your Zen. If you anticipate the EMP, you could Swift Step to your Zen, avoiding the EMP entirely, and then use your Protection Suzu on your Zen to save his life afterwards. However, I want to take this idea a step further, leading me onto aggressive Swift Steps. While some guys out there have advised against using Swift Step aggressively, there needs to be more nuance and development of this idea. Of course, teleporting to your Genji whilst he's deep in the enemy backline, or teleporting straight to your tank whilst they're on critical HP is not a good idea. However, teleporting to a healthy DPS who's taking an aggressive position in order to dish out damage yourself or to help support your DPS seems more appropriate. Referring back to the King's or third point attack example, this would be teleporting to a Sombra or Genji playing on high grounds. The last use of teleport I'll go through is for scouting purposes. So for example, on Lijiang Tower Night Market, you could wall climb on the high ground to scout where the enemy team is coming from and then teleport straight out to your team. Kiriko's second ability, the R6 Impact Grenade, makes Kiriko throw a Suzu that deals 50 healing, makes allies invulnerable for 1 second, as well as cleansing the majority of negative effects in the game, like Biotic Nade, Hack, etc. It is also on a 14-second cooldown. There are two main uses of Kiriko's Protection Suzu, to use it selfishly or to use it selflessly. Since using it more selfishly is more simple to explain, let's start off with that. Selfish Suzus are most commonly used when you yourself are in danger, likely from taking an aggressive position. For example, if you and Genji are dueling another Genji and you happen to be low HP, you might want to Suzu yourself to prevent death. You could also TP out of there, but you could be losing that angle and leaving your Genji out in the dry. The selfless Suzus are a bit more complicated. As a general rule of thumb, look for teammates who are aggressive and are likely to be pressured and get ready to Suzu them if need be. Refer back to the Sombra Zen example I gave in the last section. More simple examples could be using your Suzu on a Reinhardt who just got antied whilst you're busy on an angle shooting at the enemy team, or it could be using your Suzu on a friendly Tracer taking a duel and she got hacked by the enemy Sombra, in which case you can just teleport over to her, Suzu your Tracer and fend off the enemy Sombra. This refers back to my stance on aggressive teleports, where in this example, you're aggressively teleporting over to your Tracer, but it's unlikely that you or her are in any great danger. Kiriko is therefore almost akin to a support tracer, in that she can instantaneously relieve pressure anywhere on the map using a teleport and protection Suzu to immediately swing a duel in favour of her team. There is simply no other support in the game who has the flexibility to do this, which is why, unlike some other guys have stated, you can play Kiriko in split compositions, but I'll get onto that in the last section of the guides. Kiriko's ultimate, Mini Hanamura, makes Kiriko summon a Fox Spirit that rushes forward, accelerating move speed by 50%, rate of fire by 50%, reload time for 50%, cooldown reduction by 60%, all lasting 10.5 seconds with a 25 meter max range. There is also a 1.5 second lingering effect if you step outside of Kiriko's Kitsune Rush. To my eyes, there seem to be two main uses, to either run it down main or to win a flank. Running it down main is the simpler and more obvious choice. Your movement becomes incredibly elusive, your DPS is drastically increased thanks to the fire rate, reload and cooldown reduction, and the speed boost ensures that the enemy team will certainly have a tough time running away from your Kitsune Rush. Just imagine this ultimate on a map like Colosseo with a very long midsection, and it's basically a guaranteed teamfight win as long as you time your Kitsune Rush with your team's aggression. An additional but key tip to this use of Kitsune Rush is to try and use it when the enemy team are in open space. The reason for this is because enemies cannot run away from your Kitsune Rush as easily if they're in open space compared to them being around a corner. So for example, this Kitsune Rush on Lijiang Night Market is good because the enemy team are in open space and therefore have to move some notable amount of distance to get to safety. Obviously, make sure you time this Kitsune Rush with your team's aggression in order to capitalize on this misplay by the enemy team. If you just pop Kitsune Rush by yourself and walking forward, you're gonna feed. The other use of Kitsune Rush, in that of winning a flank, seems to be quite understated, but frankly, I could see this being used in very split compositions to win key areas and flanks in the map. Think Route 66 third point attack by the lorry. Whilst you could argue that this isn't an optimal use of Kitsune Rush, you're much more likely to win the teamfight if you win this section of the map. Now onto the final section, being playstyle, positioning and composition. Now this is where it gets complex, so to help simplify the concepts down a bit, I have cut up Kiriko's playstyle under 4 subheadings, being the scout, rush, peel, or to control flanks and angles. Since I've already gone over scouting with the Lijiang Tower example, that leaves us with 3 options. Since controlling flanks and angles is the most important playstyle regardless of what composition you play, I'll cover that first. As you can see, I've broken down the controlling flank section into 3 further parts: dueling, poking or supporting. Dueling is as simple as it seems. You take an angle, a DPS will likely duel you, and you rely on your mechanics in hitting headshots to win out that duel. You can see an example of this on Watchpoint Gibraltar Attack by the blue box. Poking is also pretty simple. Because your kunais have no fall off as Kiriko, and you have a teleport as an escape, you can literally just hold an angle and spam kunais at the beginning of fights. For example, on Route 66 first point, you could take the high ground, wait for your team to dive, and spam kunais in the meantime from your angle. Be sure to get closer though in the mid fight to get more value out of your kit. Lastly, supporting just means supporting any DPS on an angle. I've already gone through this in prior examples like King's Row, but I will mention more examples in a minute. Now onto rushing and peeling. To help explain both these concepts, I'll use a top-down view of Blizzard World first point attack. Say you're playing a very split comp, being Kiriko, Zen, Sombra, Genji, D.Va. If you want to adapt the rush playstyle, you're gonna need Kitsune Rush. Here, you could teleport to your Zen, drop Kitsune Rush in mid, and push in deep with your Sombra and Genji pinswing from behind. Alternatively, with the peeling playstyle, say your Zen gets hacked by the enemy Sombra, you could teleport to your Zen, drop your protection Suzu, and he lives. Also note the playstyle of controlling flanks also applies here. You could sit up top poking from range, you could support your Sombra from afar or teleport to her if she needs help, or you could go in very aggressively, looking to duel the enemy team and teleport straight out. Again, referring to the 3 sub-points of Kiriko controlling flanks and angles. This very example shows why Kiriko is so hard to play and why this guide was so hard to make. You're such a flexible and situational hero that you have so many options to choose from, and each will come down to how each teamfight plays out. Before I end off, I'll briefly touch on positioning, of which there are 4 simple rules taken from NatterOW. The first is to have cover or a corner, which you clearly do in this example. The second is to have line of sight, which you also have both onto your team and onto the enemy team. This is super important in order to keep a high level of awareness, so you can choose one of the many options you have, whether it be peeling, controlling flanks, rushing, etc. The third rule is to have distance from angles. This just means that you have enough distance from flanks that you can react to threats coming onto you like an enemy Genji. The last rule is to have defensive or aggressive rotational options. So a defensive option would be teleporting to your Zen, and an aggressive option would be to teleport to your Sombra or to drop down and duel. Anyways, I really hope this guide explained how many flexible playstyles Kiriko can have in a single team fight thanks to her mobility in teleports. Make sure that if this video helped to raise your IQ, be sure to share it with your friends to also raise theirs. Until next time.